If you would like to support the channel, please consider becoming a patron on Patreon. More information in the description below. He ran from his captors, burned and maddened. After 6 years as a slave, used and tortured by the Northmen, the one once called Findan cast away his name and became Druth. In the wilds of the Isles of Orkney, he met a young woman named Senua who, like him, fought the darkness within. Druth would not long survive his grievous injuries, but in the time that he had left, he told stories to this young outcast. He told her of the Northmen, of their gods and beliefs, of the quests of heroes, and acted as a guide when she questioned herself and the world around her. Druth taught her to challenge her fate, to defy the gods themselves, to look upon even the horrors of the world and to face them. After all, you cannot overcome suffering if you refuse to look at it. The stories of the dying man greatly impacted Senua. She remembered his words. She learned that the power of a quest gave hardship meaning. Perhaps defeating her darkness was her quest. Would that not bring sense to the suffering that she had endured? Senua didn't see the world as others did, and for it, she was an outcast. She heard voices, saw faces, saw patterns and geometric shapes. She would sometimes see the entire world different from others, just like her mother had, and for it, she suffered. She was isolated, abused by her father and his insistence that she needed him. She longed for freedom, and even her mind was sometimes a prison. Her mother was taken from her when she was just 5 years old. When she came of age, she fell in love with another youth named Dillion. She went to the wilds to be rid of her father and to defeat her darkness. That became her quest. After Druth died, she remembered him. She heard him as though he were right there, giving her counsel, telling her stories. She did return to her village and found that the Northmen had razed it to the ground and killed her beloved Dillion. Her people were betrayed by a man clad in black who then vanished from the lands. Oh, Senua, what a sorrowful journey she undertook to save the soul of her beloved. At the end of her quest, after vowing to give her very soul to Hela as a warrior come Ragnarok, she was able to bid Dillion goodbye. Her darkness was quieted, defeated. But that was not the end for Senua. She undertook a new quest. She had to. Without a quest, the suffering lacked meaning. Senua vowed to go to the lands of the Northmen where she would see this madness ended. But what awaited her there? What stories did this new land have to tell? Most of the inhabitants of this northern land were from other places, normal folk who fled wars and hardship. They found a land free of inhabitants with soil that could bring bounty. But this new world presented a violent side as well. Volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, wild seas, harsh weather conditions. Stories of giants and gods were told to make sense of the disasters, but life still had to continue. Those strongest began sailing the seas. They traveled to other lands, raided what they found, and took slaves. When Northmen arrived, brutal violence ensued, just like what had happened to Senua's home on the Isles of Orkney. But we're not here to recount the histories of Iceland or the plundering done by the Vikings. We are here to walk alongside Senua, see the world through her eyes, and understand the quest that so drives her forward. So, let's begin. In the land called Borgavirki, there was safety and prosperity. But when ash and darkness came to cover the land, when fire spewed from the mountains, fear gripped its people. Countless died, settlements wiped out, local leaderships failed. All around the north, the people suffered. Bonds which united families, friends, communities broke. Fear choked the weak. But in Borgavirki, one arose to lead. When all else failed and faded, he proclaimed that he knew what to do, and many rallied around him as though he himself were a god. He would be their salvation, and it was done in honesty, for this man truly wanted to save his people. But this man realized that it was fear that brought people to him, what made him so needed, what gave him power. Through fear, he could control, and when the times began to turn brighter and his people weren't so afraid of the world, their need for him began to end. And this man did not wish to lay down his power, did not wish to go about an honored life, did not wish to be unneeded, did not wish to allow his people choice and independence. So, he would return fear to the lands and continue dominion over the hearts and minds of those that he wanted to need him. The man brought forth giants. From the earth, sea, from the snow, he made them monsters. and the people of Borgovyrki trembled. There was so much in this world to fear. He would make his people hate the weak. He would make them turn on each other. He would blacken their hearts with terror, and through that he would be made strong. Once again, the people rallied to this man, not knowing him to be the tyrant that controlled the giants, not knowing him to be the true source of their fears. This man became the Gori of Borgovyrki, their leader. But the people of the north had a different story to tell about the giants. It was said that they came from Jotunheim. When a volcano's eruption broke down the wall between the realms, from the east came the giants, killing and eating all that they could find. It was believed that only the gods could slay a giant, but the gods were nowhere to be found. Who could possibly stand against the giants of Jotunheim? What hope could they find? To satisfy the giant of Borgovyrki, sacrifices were made. Raiding parties were sent to foreign lands to claim slaves, which would be fed to the giants, and surrounding settlements were equally victimized. They would send food and offerings to the Gori, or they would be enslaved and offered as sacrifices. While Borgovyrki itself remained stable, its people fed, housed, and kept safe, the surrounding lands suffered, not just because of the Gori, but they too were forced to contend with unrelenting giants. From the red hills of Radalar to the southwest, a tale must be told of a woman. Starvation and thirst had driven the people of this region into madness and fury. But the woman carried with her the weakest of them all, her newborn, her child. The woman sought a haven for herself and her child, but none could be found. There was no mercy, not even for a baby girl, and dark gods rose to power. The woman would not let her daughter suffer through such a world, so she took the baby to the volcano called Askja, and there she begged the hidden folk to take mercy on the child, to raise them, free them from the darkness of the outside world. The woman made a bargain with Askja that if the volcano, which had brought so much pain to the land, would give her the power to thrive in this world that it had created, then it could have her very life for itself. The bargain was struck, and the woman was claimed by the rage of the volcano. Her true name was cast aside, and she became Illtauga. Wherever Illtauga went, so too would the fury and power of the volcano. But the child was not saved. Her baby died there, alone, unclaimed by the hidden folk of Askja. Illtauga's pain, sorrow, and hatred was her entire being. She became a monster. There is another story to tell, this one at the coast, near a place called Bardavik. When darkness covered the land, the people there helped one another through the fear and the hunger, and they took in those that sought help. Here was hope that could not be smothered. But giants passed through the lands, and the ones called Draegr followed. They, who worshipped the giants, who made sacrifices to them, they were more akin to demons than man. But the Draegr weren't the worst of it. The Bjorg were, the slavers and fighters from Borgovyrki. They came to dominate this region, to collect food and sacrifices. Among the people of Bardavik was a man who dearly loved his friends. He had come here seeking aid after the darkness came, and they took him in and made him one of their own. But his fear of the Bjorg was stronger than that love. When the Bjorg found the man and offered him safety in return for information about his chief, the man agreed. The man tricked his leader and caused his capture, and then the Bjorg murdered the leader. The man thought that he had succeeded in securing his safety and believed that his betrayal would remain a secret. But his friends found out and all turned against him. The man was cast out of the village by the daughter of the leader to face the wilds alone. But he didn't survive that banishment. The seas took him and the depths consumed him. He became a giant and was cast back onto the shore. Full of remorse, guilt, shame, and anger, the giant began to hunt the ones that he once called friends. Javirisi he was called, but none knew who he once was. His true name was left unsaid. The warrior from Orkney didn't know what awaited her in the north, but she knew of the slavers, knew of the suffering. She'd vowed to her departed beloved Dillion that not one more soul would suffer as he had. Senua's heart, her goodness, her love were mighty. Her word was her bond, so she would see the slavers ended. This was her quest. She allowed herself to be captured by the Bjorg. She was loaded onto one of their ships alongside other terrified victims so that she could reach the Northlands and stop the evil taking place. The ship flew a blood-red banner. It was a symbol which would guide her on to her destination. But a wild storm overtook the ship off the coast of the Northlands. It struck a rock that tore the boat apart, sending all within down into the depths of the sea. The voices within, her furies, ordered her to fight, to get out of the water, to not be taken down by struggling men trying to reach air. Senua survived the crash, made it to shore, and fought the waves to escape the tides trying to take her back out to sea, all while bleeding, injured, exhausted, barely able to even breathe. But Senua is a young woman made of steel and grit. She climbed her way out of death. But the ship and the slavers, that was how she was going to make it to her goal. Now alone, with no weapon, no idea where she was, no clue which direction to go, all she could do was move forward and look for signs. Now, resting away from the waves, under cold, unrelenting rain, we too join her. Her furies speak insults and plans to her. They both help and hinder, abuse and praise, and the voice of the shadow returns. The voice of her father, Zinbil, who chastises, abuses, and mocks. This being assures her that she will fail, she will die. Senua thought that after facing Hela, after saying goodbye to Dillion, she would be freed from the shadow, but he tells her that he will always be there. It preys on and amplifies her fears, but Senua's vow to Dillion holds far more power than the voice of her father. The pain of others and the deaths of even strangers haunts Senua as she walks. Though it was not her fault, the death of the other slaves on that ship tortures her. Survivor's guilt. She wants to find others who may have lived. She wants to help them. The Furies are angry that she didn't do more and add negative commentary to an already tense situation, at times even agreeing with the shadow when he speaks. One may encourage impulses and intrusive thoughts, while others fight against it. Nothing is off limits to them, and nothing will censor them. Senua finds the red banners of the slavers that brought her here, and believes them to be what will guide her on. All around her are signs and symbols for her to interpret. They will have special meaning meant for her, as this is her quest and only she can see them. There are totems on the path from time to time, with runes on them which remind her of statues from her previous journey into Helheim. When she focused on those statues, she heard Druth's voice. He would tell her stories, guide her. She focuses in on these totems, and once again the comforting voice of her friend rings out. Druth, reassuring her that he is still with her. She made it out of hell itself, and now she's in Midgard. She will seek these totems out to hear his counsel and to remember his stories. If there are survivors, then the Bjorg would certainly be amongst them. She needs a weapon if she is to fight back, and she needs to find the slave master, the one who rode at the front of the ship. If he still lives, she will make him take her to his homeland. Once Senua is more focused, when she's more connected with her goals and her quest, the Furies begin fighting back against the voice of the shadow. They tell him to shut up, tell Senua to listen to them, not him. She has become highly resistant to his painful words and mockery. Senua finds patterns and symbols in the environment to make her way through barriers and blockades of rocks. It's a process that she has repeated many times over. It's how she brings order and makes sense of her path. It reaffirms that she is on the right path in a world that often doesn't make sense, and often the speculation and statements of the Furies in her mind are incorrect in regards to what's beyond a previously blocked off path. The choking, wailing, and weeping of the dying creep into her ears, words that blame her for letting the other slaves die. Though it's not her fault, her heart mourns them, and she still suffers from her own guilt that she made it out, and they didn't. And when the screams of the sea bring that guilt to a crescendo, the voice of the shadow isn't far behind to put to words just how achingly terrible it is, and that it's all her fault. One of the slavers does find her, attacks her, hits her with the intent to capture her again. But Senua takes the man's own weapon and cuts him down with it. She's now armed and with energy enough to fight back. Those who come across her on this beach might think her a youth unable to protect herself, but they will many times over be proven wrong. Senua learned to dance with her blade while watching Dillion practice. She had a natural talent for the art, which made her a force to be reckoned with in battle. The banners, the symbols, the signs lead her to where she needs to be, the slave master himself. He emerges from the mist of this wretched place and confronts this young woman, asking what she's going to do with her sword, and then takes arms against her when she refuses to back down. She doesn't know this man, not his name, his history, his deeds in life, other than he hurts others. He takes them from their home, herds them to a faraway place, and when defied, he resorts to violence. And though the desire to kill him may be strong, Senua is not consumed that she would forget her quest. She needs this man alive. He must be her guide, but that doesn't mean he needs to be unharmed. Their battle on that shore is vicious, brutal, and exquisitely human. It's not a fight that's easy to watch. There's nothing aesthetically pleasing or choreographed about it. Not some romantic display of skill so common to see. It's true, it's primal, and Senua wins. The moment before she bashes his skull in with a rock, she halts herself. Even here at the height of battle, she remembers. Her hatred set aside, she will not kill the slave master. She sees upon his body something so familiar. The rot, the darkness. It's within him, it's going to take him over, hurt him like it did to her once. Senua sets aside the stone and tells this man that she will not kill him, but he is going to take her where she needs to go. Her mercy has earned her a question from him. Where? She commands he takes her to his home. He may be injured, but he will walk. She made a promise, and he owes her his life. The slave master leads her to a settlement not far away, a place that his father commands. Freslug, his father, the Godi, the one that she seeks. This is his own son. The Godi is not here, but this place will suffice as a shelter for them to recover at. As they walk, the slave master promises that he is going to kill Senua when he's free, but she pays his goading no mind. He's injured and in chains. She's not outwardly concerned. His injured ego will just have to suffer. There are more immediate things to take note of, such as the birds circling the settlement. And it's quiet here. There's smoke. There's an odd smell, the smell of death in the air. The slave master, too, recognizes that something is wrong here. They cannot enter that place. They should not enter that place. Drager, he says, only death is beyond the gates. But Senua hears someone within her mind, and so too do the Furies. Someone is here, suffering. She needs to go inside. She needs to find them, help them. This is a part of her quest. She must face what is beyond those walls and help the one who is calling to her. And her captive is none too happy over it. His threats turn into trying to reason with her. All they have to do is leave. Just turn around. But his words fail to convince her. Not even these so-called Drager will stop her. She does not take him into Freslug, though. He could be a liability, slow her down, and he's defenseless. Senua senses something horrific awaiting her. She hears the screams, sees the flames. Yes, there is no way he is going with her. She will leave him outside the gates, tied up but relatively safe, at least assuming that she comes back. Otherwise, starvation or these Drager will take him. She enters Freslug alone. Within, there is carnage. The work of the Drager? Warnings of what to expect should Senua ever be confronted by them. But to what end? Why do this? Everyone has been butchered, torn apart, their limbs put together like sickening totems, all very intentional, but why? How could one human being do this to another? Not even the Northmen were this extreme, yet it pulls her into the past after they raided her home and killed so many of her people. She survived, they did not. If she had been there, if she had been home, could she have saved others? Could some have survived? There are screams coming from the hills, the clear distress of men pleading for their lives. But here in the village, there's nothing, no one. She must find symbols to make her way forward, trek throughout this barren place, through the gore and muck to find them. All the while the shadow taunts her, reminds her of home, blames her for it happening, and tries to instill fear of what's awaiting her past the blocked-off path. Once through, she sees not the world around her, but her home, where once her mother dwelled, ever cheerful at Senua's appearance. Inside the house is a small mirror which she wore at her hip, which will help her focus against her enemies to slow things down, give her an advantage. Yes, she needs this. It will help her when it's time to fight. How did it work again? What exactly did this mirror do? Senua fights a gauntlet of Northmen, just like she did back in Helheim, in the Land of Shadow. Her mirror aids her, slows them down, makes things tangible. Nothing can stop her if she has this at her side, and only she can wield it properly. The burning village fades away, giving room to memories of what she found long ago when she returned home from the wilds. When her home was cinders, her father missing, and Dillion dead. Though the shadow continues to torment her, Senua has accepted this. The memory of finding Dillion hurts, but it does not control her. It doesn't break her. She fought that demon and replaced the struggle with a promise that none will suffer like Dillion did. She carries her memories, carries the darkness, and uses it to drive her forward. She speaks that it is a promise, not a prison. Her memories of her mother, of Dillion, even of Druth, will be a light on her path. The vision fades away, Senua is back in Freyslag, and the way forward is clear. She has succeeded. There is a road leading out of the settlement, up into the hills, where she heard screaming. Smoke is billowing, and the flash of fire lights up the dusk. Her furies say it's terrifying, yet beautiful. That is where she must go. Imagine the weight of each step, seeing certain doom on the horizon, yet running towards it. That is what Senua does, because her bravery is far greater than her fear. The limbs decorating the roads, the booming of an unknown approaching, the howling of feral things, it does not stop her. Upon this hillside, she meets the Draegr. They are every bit as fetid as the slave master had led her to believe. They barely use words. They grunt and growl, gnash and beat. They consume the flesh of men and make sacrifices to some god of this land that Senua does not know. This is a place of worship, or maybe summoning. They mimic rituals once dedicated to the goddess Freya in life, but it has been made perverse. The people that called this place home became objects of their rituals. Those unfortunate enough to still be alive can only wait their turn to be butchered. Senua spots what she was looking for. Tied to one of the limb totems, a man still yet lives. He speaks to her. She feels him reaching out from the darkness. She hears that he is a healer. He had come here to heal those that walk these darkest of lands, and he knew that through the shadows he would find his light, her. This is her quest. She knows it. Saving him, she must save this man. The shadow asks her, would she give her life for these outsiders? And she says that in her darkest hour, it was an outsider, Druth, that saved her. So yes, she would give her life. As she treks, a more difficult question is posed. This man is of the north. His kin killed her people. Should she not want him dead? Why would she save someone who should be her enemy? She sneaks the outskirts of the site, unable to help those inside who beg for her help. Places like this should not exist, yet the violence is all too human. She does reach that man despite it all. Before her sword cuts him free, she is intercepted by the Draegr. She didn't make it unnoticed. She will have to fight her way through this. As she cuts down the feral men one by one, those who still live rebel and try to flee. Most are killed, some fight back beside Senua. There is only one chance to get out, and better to die on your feet fighting than in a dark corner in defeat. Senua and the survivors kill many of the Draegr, but there are just too many of them. Only by a small margin do the Draegr take victory, but they don't rush at Senua. They're enthralled in something. The ritual has been completed. There has been enough bloodshed, and something is coming. The Draegr turn their attention to the hillsides and the sky. The Furies warn Senua that she is coming, something from the other world. They have to hurry, they have to run. She cuts this man free, and the ground itself begins to explode. The Draegr do not flee. They remain in worship as the ground crumbles in around itself, calling out the name Illtauga. Senua and this man flee, make it off the low ground, into the light of the rising sun, where silence and peace greet them. Senua questions why it all just stopped. And the man says that it's daybreak, that she will have to hide from the light. The two of them will be hunted come nightfall. They are not safe. This man is Fargrimr. He had come to Freyslag to seek help for his people, but he instead walked into a massacre. He was to be an offering to something, Illtauga, the Furies say. Fargrimr says that she is welcome to come back with him, back to his home. He can't provide safety, but he can offer refuge. The monster makes its home near his village. That's why he had come here seeking help. Come nightfall, she will emerge again, and they need to be off the ground by then. This man knows the slave master, Thorgestr of Borkavirki. Fargrimr knows where Borkavirki is, but why would she want to go there? They would surely kill her once they knew who she was. If Fargrimr took her to Borkavirki, then she doesn't need Thorgestr. Yet, it's clear that this man has a softness for the slave master. He doesn't want to see harm done to him, even if the Bjorg are a vile, cruel people. But why would he want mercy for Thorgestr? The tied-up man asks for help, and with a simple, stern look of earnestness from Fargrimr, Senua goes to get him up. He won't be left here to die. They'll take him home, much to the protest of her Furies. Fargrimr extends hospitality, and Thorgestr accepts, but his ego doesn't allow him to do so without promising that it changes nothing. There will be no thanks for his help. Illtauga, Fargrimr says, is a giant. She will awaken at sundown. They need to get moving. It is believed that the giants are immortal, only killable by the gods which no longer walk these lands. The days continue to grow shorter. Soon it will be winter. The time of man is coming to its end here. No one can hold out against the rage of the giants. Great smoke plumes flood into the sky far away. Another volcano readying itself, one coming to rest, or to Senua, the epicenter of her evolving quest. Fargrimr's people had come to the Northlands to flee madness and misery, and for a time they were happy, but eventually they found themselves slowly wasting away here. The volcano erupted, darkness came, and the giants emerged. By sunset, they are at the Red Hills of Rodalar, a place that Thorgestr knows too. To see the devastation brought by the disasters by the giants, it brings a solemnness about him. He didn't realize how dire things had become. He chastises Fargrimr, telling him that they should have joined the Bjorg when they had a chance, but the older man bites back that there is no honor in the path of Thorgestr's people. Unless the younger man's anger flare, he needs to remember who their actual enemy is here, and where his focus truly should be. It works. Thorgestr backs down, listens to Fargrimr's words, and silences his anger. Clearly there is some respect for the words of this strange man. Not far from their refuge, the ground begins to shake and moan. The sun is nearly gone, and Illtauga is impatient. Fargrimr announces that she is here, and to make a run for the hills. Only after a few steps, Senua falls and loses sight of her travel companions. The ground gave away, and they are nowhere to be seen. She is alone, and the giant Illtauga is searching for her. The rubble of houses crash down around her. The earth violently shakes, cutting off her roots, and she can hear the voice of the earth calling out to her as she runs. It is saying her name. Illtauga knows her name. The world begins to turn red. Lava shoots from the ground, rubble and wood float in the air. Senua finds the entrance to the refuge where Fargrimr told them to go, but behind her, as soon as darkness falls, the giant Illtauga emerges, and she reaches for Fargrimr. He's here. They found each other again. Senua attacks the arm of Illtauga, stopping her from taking Fargrimr, and its attention shifts to her. Illtauga draws in close, hovers over Senua, and in a terrifying display of power, simply says, "We are monsters." Dillion had spoken to her of monsters. He told her to step out of the darkness. Let the world see her. Let them see that she was not a monster. Not like her father was, nor like he'd convinced her that she was. For so long she had thought herself to be one, yet through the words and acts of a few precious others, she discovered that she wasn't. Illtauga calls herself a monster, but there is something in her eyes that Senua knows. There's pain, there's suffering. They see each other, they understand each other. Thorgestr fights back against the giant, takes Senua's arm, and the reunited three retreat into the rocks to climb to safety while the wailing Illtauga reaches out to her. Thorgestr reached out to help her, save her, pull her back from the clutches of certain death. Does this mean that he is not monstrous? Is there good in him? Can he be brave too? Perhaps there is hope for this slaver. Once relatively safe, Fargrimr tells them the story of the giants. That when the volcano erupted, the wall between Midgard and Jotunheim was torn down, and the giants came through from the east to consume and destroy. Most were forced into hiding, but Thorgestr's people used others to placate the giants. The slave master argues that they did it to save their own people, but his reasoning is weak, and he knows it. He doesn't push back against Fargrimr. He accepts the man's words, and a new terrible truth is revealed. The Bjorg use their captives as sacrifices, human sacrifices, so the giants don't consume them, too. They victimize the weak and the vulnerable so that they can live on, and Senua is incensed. Her rage doesn't overtake her, but this is part of her quest now, ending the sacrifices, stopping the Godi, Thorgestr's own father. He simply says that she doesn't stand a chance against them, and walks away. Senua is going to kill Illtauga. She must. They can't leave the Red Hills until that giant is gone. She will hunt and kill them otherwise. Senua killed the Jotun Surtur and the god of illusion Valravan. Nothing is impossible. Yet, the shadow intrudes that she didn't kill any gods. Humans can't kill gods. She is stranded here with a quest that she can never complete. Into another vision she goes, a journey into her mind through a dark, misty forest where the shadow continues its abuses towards her. Yet, she defies him at every turn. He is wrong. She will succeed just like before. She treks through this nightmare alone, finding paths that reject and harm her, foes that wish to battle her, and the shadow never ceases his talking. He speaks poorly of her and encourages her to give up on this land. But she's seen goodness in Fargrimr, even Thorgestr. She sees that the Northmen were controlled by fear, that a greater evil than them is the cause of all of this. She too felt that fear once. She knows what it is to be controlled by lies. She overcame it, and she is going to help these people kill their monsters. Senua won't back down, so one more horror is portrayed. Her mother being burned alive, the results of her sins. Her mother's death brought prosperity to Senua's people. Everything was fine until Senua came back. Her sin ruined them. The gods can't be killed, only placated. But she sees through this, sees through the darkness, knows the truth of sin, sees through the lies that he insists on telling, and she is going to show the people of these Northlands how to see like she does. It took some time for it all to form, but Senua's quest is clear now. Destroy the giants, open the eyes of the Godi, stop the slavery and the sacrifices, release these lands from fear. She's ready for the next step. Fargrimr doesn't think it's possible to stop the giants, but concedes that if anyone could do it, it's Senua. He knows that she listens to things that others can't hear, sees things that others can't see, but it's not a shameful or frightening thing. She's a seer, and that makes her special. He says that Illtauga finds her rest here, in the cliffs nearby. She can't be summoned during the day, and no human stands a chance against her in direct battle. They will have to find another way to kill the giants. He tells Senua of the Hidden Folk, a secret, powerful people who were once gods or godlike, yet now they hide themselves in the earth. Even the giants fear them, so she must find them and seek their aid. The Hidden Folk tolerate mankind, but they certainly have no love for them. It will be a challenge to find them. They will certainly test her, but it will give her a chance to win their favor. The Hidden Folk live within the rock, the entrance hidden from view, but if they want her to find it, then she will. This is a journey she must take alone, so while the sun is still new, Senua departs to find the Hidden Folk. Hidden trails, secret paths, symbols to find, stories to hear, she walks the plains of rock alone, searching for anything that may look unique. At mid-morning, she finds a rock upon a pile of stones. Holding it changes her view of the world. It's inverted and covered, and a voice echoes out asking if she sees things differently. She places the sphere upon a pile of stones as an offering, and it gives something in return. Kaleidoscope bubbles that when focused on will add or take away from her paths. Sometimes they'll work in conjunction with symbols, runes, or more spheres. But if she solves these puzzles, the true way forward will be revealed. She'll know that she is on the right path. The Hidden Folk whisper to her throughout the hills and the canyons, asking how far she is willing to go to find them. They whisper threats, frightening things. They tell her they don't want her, that she cannot see through the veil. Even the Draegr are here to stop her. They attack her in the darkest places. But she persists. She may question herself, but she doesn't let that stop her. She must remain true to her quest. And she finds the secret entrance in the heart of a lake. She passed their first test, and this is her reward. She may plunge into the depths of the earth and seek them out. A single torch is left for her, her only light. She goes deeper and deeper and deeper into the dark. The walls close in, the paths get thinner. She has to drop down rock faces that almost guarantee there's no way for her to go back. She can only go forward and hope that she doesn't hit a dead end or, worse, get stuck. There are more spheres and globe obstacles to be overcome. Fires of strange color to ignite to unlock hidden paths. It seems to go on forever. Hours of trekking and squeezing through the dark. And then she has to contend with water, putting out her only light source. And Senua fears the dark waters of these caves. It reaches out to her, threatening to drown her, to take her. The Furies are just as frightened as she is, and the echoing voice of the Hidden Folk taunt her just like the shadow does. There is no comfort to be found here, no reprieve from these tests. It is brutal to hear and hard to watch. Partway through these trials, she sees a figure on another part of the path. It's herself and what she will do, yet this future self is helping Senua now. She has to work with herself to conquer this, see herself as an ally, and have faith that things will work out. For a brief time, she returns to the open skies, freed from the suffocating caverns, but this is short-lived. She must choose to return to the darkness of the earth to continue the tests. It's still light outside. She could just give up and return to the Red Hills, but Senua does not. Night falls outside and she delves back into the tunnels of the Hidden Folk. Her reward for this is their light. They will guide her now with beautiful colors and safety so long as it is near. But with this beauty comes terror. Cave creatures as horrible as the Draegr are here. They live in the darkness, they shun the light, but their hunger is great, and Senua is food. She must fight, alone in the darkness, as the light of the Hidden Folk moves aside to allow these trials of combat. Once she succeeds, they resume their guidance. At a strange notch in the rocks, possibly the most difficult test begins. A voice calls to her, begging for help. Something is coming for them. They need her help. They need her sword, her only weapon, her only source of protection from the cave beasts. Will she give up the last thing she has to save the life of another? The Furies tell her not to do it. They need the sword. Don't give it up. But Senua passes her blade into the notch, into the hands of whoever is on the other side. Hopefully they've been delivered salvation, but now, what about her? Senua walks in the light. It will keep her safe from the creatures here, but she can hear them all around. If she takes just a single step out of the light, they will claim her, and she has no way to fight back. But her faith in the Hidden Folk was well placed. She is kept safe throughout the dens, and led to a cavern with light leaking in. Difficult terrain, blocked paths, and narrow caverns are her hindrances now. She finds her way to a pool, the walls shifting in repeating shapes and vibrant colors. She knows that this is where she was meant to go. The Hidden Folk respond to her call. She's a madwoman, a witch, a warrior, a hero. They know who she is, but is she ready for what she'll find here? The waters will be her door, her own reflection the key to it. Everything she has suffered has led her here to this precise place. She will not fail those who need her. She is ready. She plunges into the waters of the pool. She has passed the final test. The Hidden Folk bless Senua with knowledge of her foe, but it is not what a warrior might expect. By her name, you will know her. The Hidden One who speaks to her tells her the story of Illtauga and shows her the steps that a woman once took here. This woman once knew sweet days after leaving behind a world of war and misery. These lands were her home, and things were good for a time. But when tragedy came, when Asuka exploded, her world fell apart. Nothing comes from nothing. Monsters are created, and from where matters. This woman, Senua, knew her pain of loss, fear, desperation to save someone that she loved. For this woman, it was her baby girl. She tried to give her baby to the Hidden Folk, but none answered. She gave herself to the vengeful forces of Asuka itself so that she might survive in this new terrible world. Before the end of the tale, the actions Senua took during her journey will dictate her survival. She has no weapon, and enemies are nearing. There's a bright light coming from a rock, and in desperation she runs to it and calls out for help. The faint voice of herself answers from not long ago. She'd given her weapon to the voice in the rock in faith that she would be okay, and that whoever was on the other side would need it more. She made a sacrifice to help another, and in doing so, helped herself. This is a newly christened weapon for a new Senua, one ready to face the truth of the giant. She viciously fights through the cave creatures, through their gnawing, biting, scratching, and growling. Even when surrounded, she doesn't stop fighting. When the numbers overtake her, she continues to struggle. She's taken down, the beasts intent on murder, but the coming carnage fades as the Hidden One's voice stops the event. He asks if now she's full of hatred, if she wants to change. What would she do to survive? He says that she cannot kill the giants, but secrets that fester in the darkness can be burned away with the light. She demands help, but what she seeks is already here. She just has to look. This monster, this giant, Illtauga, she did not come from nothing. The gods did not help her when she begged for aid. Instead, her fury was made eternal, and the baby she tried to save was lost. Senua finds the skeleton of the babe, still wrapped in its blanket. She understands that this was a part of Illtauga, that this was the source of her sorrow and her suffering. On the child is a brooch bearing the real name of Illtauga, Ingen. Her name was Ingen, and she was not a monster. The world made her Illtauga, made her a monster. Ingen deserves to be saved, like all that Senua lost before. This is how to kill a giant. Heal the human. Help Illtauga. Speak her name and give her back her child. Vargrimmr meets Senua within the cave. The entrance wasn't far away. It was very close to Red Hills, but her journey throughout the earth was as real as the stars. He agrees that true names have power that cut into our hearts. Knowing the name of Illtauga will give Senua power. What she chooses to do with that power will define who she is. Vargrimmr tells her that the twisted rituals of the Draegr summoned Illtauga, but they too can do their own ritual, one far less horrific, that will allow Senua to see the world through Illtauga's eyes. It will take her through a door to another place beyond the veil, where only ones with special eyes like Senua can see. Though this man is far different from Druth, he understands Senua in that special way that the old man did. He treats her with respect, with casual conversation she doesn't often get to enjoy. He brings a grounding normalcy and a positive outlook, a wonderful balance to the chaos she so often faces. By nightfall, everything is readied. Senua sits in the middle of a circle as the survivors of Red Hill carry out their ritual, to open the veil, to allow Senua to see Illtauga. Their chanting, dancing, and rhythmic drumming send her into a trance-like state. With eyes closed, shutting out the world around her, Senua goes beyond the veil to the home of Illtauga. It is a place of choking heat and flowing magma. Illtauga rides on a landmass, but she does not rule this place. She is a prisoner. She's chained here, trapped in this hell of her own rage. Senua calls out her true name, Ingen, tells her that she knows her, and asks her to remember. Senua is going to set her free and give her back what she lost. With only the cover of rock to shield her, she runs through the magma field while bursts of fire shoot mere inches from her body. If she is hit, she will have to try again. Her body is not here. This is a battle fought in the mind. The hardest battles are fought in the mind. She reaches a chain, cuts it free, and Illtauga calls to Senua with undeniable hurt behind it. The breaking of this chain increases the speed of the fires. Senua must run faster to cover, make more stops, and pray that the rocks hold up against the spray of fire. The giant tries to tell Senua of her pain. They took everything from her. Senua promises that she can help her. She can help Ingen, but the giant screams back that they are monsters. The crashing of the waves is stronger now, faster again to match Illtauga's fury. Yet too she cries, the sorrowful sobs of a woman who has lost everything, a pain that they share, and Illtauga knows it. The final chains lay beyond the giant's greatest surges of fury. The flames hit so hard that it crumbles Senua's cover, forcing her to stay mobile or she'll be claimed by it. Illtauga calls out the name of her child, Hala, who she tried so hard to save. Hala is gone. Everything is gone. The final chain broken. The flames died down. Illtauga is free from what bound her here. But her fate, Ingen's fate, is already written. The Furies tell Senua that she is in pain. She's dying. She's suffering. But the sight of her Hala, her child, brings a light to Ingen's eyes. It's time for her to have peace, to rest, to let go of the grief that made her monstrous. Senua gives Ingen back her child, so that the two might rest together. This is how you kill a giant. Though the shadow tries to tear her down, Senua's senses return to the hopeful voice of Thorgestr, the slaver that once vowed to kill her. Thorgestr believes in her, has seen with his own eyes that the giants can be defeated. He needs to go home, to tell his father they can stop all of this, they can fight back. He never wanted the sacrifices to hurt people. And if all of this is real, then he will fight at her side to end it. He swears it. He never believed it was possible that they could win against gods. He'd been so devoid of hope for his future that belief in a good one brings a light out of him. All he needed was a chance, to prove that he was more than an attack dog for the Godi. She came here to destroy the Northmen, but perhaps instead she'll save them. Show them that the world can change. All three of them will journey to Borkavirki to speak to the Gaudi. Their journey together begins at first light.